recommendation to build the knowledge society. So dealing with this information society will lead us to speak about 4 points at least. Education and training means research, capacity building, and legal issues in our countries. So the actual situation is not so positive for technical background women in general. Disparities between men and women involved in these, mainly in high graduate school and universities. And in many countries, gender-based discrimination coupled with social and cultural barriers limits access to this, to the participation of women in higher education. That leads us, of course, to these skills in engineering field. Some people attribute these barriers to the social role played by women inside their families, but all of us know that it isn't the real problem, and we will see that later. So in field of science and technology, education in general, that can begin the distinguish from the common education will begin from the age of 15 years old, and since that moment we will see clearly that women will be less involved than men in the scientific branch in general. And girls are then less enrolled in high schools after the secondary one, and they are more interested by arts and humanities in general. There are various reasons for this related to gender stereotyping. All of us know about that. And misleading perception that since the science and technology are subjects more suitable for boys because of the characteristic of the career, professional career after, the failure of curricula to relate science and technology to the everyday life of women. And there is also self-inhibition and what we call glass barriers inside women themselves, inhibiting them to go to this branch and to deal with these challenges. We know that we are still a minority in this scientific and technical branch, and when young girls asked for counsel from their the other, they said to them, you should better go on an educational way or branch rather than a technical field. And the employment environment that inhibits women to introduce their own values and vision into a working world dominated by men till now. We can speak also about cultural disparities between varying from country to another and varying from a region to another, even in the same country. And we speak about, of course, rural and urban areas, and rural women are less involved in education courses in general. I make this study for some statistics in Arabic countries, for example. Until 2001, you see then that men are more educated at a high level than women. But we see some disparities in the Gulf area, for example. At high school, at universities, women make much studies than men. And we will see that, for example, for the Bahrain later. And in scientific courses, of course, we have, you see the Gulf area, for example, Bahrain, Emirates, Kuwait, and the percentage the ratio is so high. And that is due to cultural and economic condition in the Gulf area, but it isn't a worldwide tendency, if you want. And you can see that, but even if they are more than 60 or 70% in general involved at university, women are less involved in engineering field or science, as you can see. After that, what it is more explaining the phenomena, if you want, that we have a very big ratio of loss of disqualified and high graduate women in the fields of work. So they are less than 10% in business manager or professional in general. the tendency is better in Egypt, for example, but it seems we still have the same disparities for the final issue as decision makers and business managers, skilled engineer. These statistics show that we have good enrollment in science and technology, and now it is becoming better from mainly in the ICT fields, but this loss is increasing the gender divide and the development divide. Now we spoke about this brain drain, and I think that it is less important for women when they are educated. They stay in their countries, but we don't have enough for that. And even at that ratio, we still have no much involvement as decision maker, as I said, and especially at political level, for example. So, in certain disciplines, for example, when we speak about science, of course, we find that a traditional field now dominated by women are health, pharmacy, medicine, but still less in physics, mathematics, and engineering. So this seems, if it is an international trade, an international constat, so it is, we can think that it is really due to this barrier inside women themselves, and we have to improve that. Recently, we noticed that culture are changing, and even in the most conservative societies, we are pushing women to go ahead in their studies and to go to more diversified, if you want, field of studies, and to build more career opportunities, but that remain still short and less, not greater career opportunities for women in the technical field. Okay, the influence factors, as we said, are social-cultural factors, and women, the main factor, I think, that women are raised and educated in a male-dominated society with very traditional attitudes, even in mainly in developing countries. We cannot speak about the developed one, but and we still find this great difference between the urban and rural areas also. The natural work of a woman is to raise and to educate children and to do homework, if you want. So other factors such as the challenges combining responsibility for household, for those who are acting in the professional field, but the balancing between the two responsibility is too heavy. So at one moment we leave and we say we will turn to make university study, or to teach, or to make another work since it is too heavy for us. Despite all the constraints, we can notice many specific cases, if you want, in each country. Of course, we are speaking about success stories of such women, but it isn't enough. I still say they are less than 20% of the whole involvement and the whole enrollment in each field, so we have too much work to do. I will go ahead, but I will refer to the words of Kofi Annan in the United Nations Global Initiative to Educate Girls. He said, "Let us prove that a society which empowers its women is a society sure to succeed." So we know that they represent more than 50% of each society, and we have a loss of this empowerment in our countries. I will go through the digital divide. You know, gender and digital divide is showing that we are speaking about during the summit, for example. But I can say that information technology, for example, can take you anywhere, everywhere. Dealing with ICT is not only the mean of being a developing engineer, programming and making specific programs. ICT now is involved everywhere. It is used everywhere, in each field, in medicine, in physics, in agriculture, in teaching. So every person have to be skilled and to have at least the minimum of capacity to deal with this technology in its own work. And IT is considered as a development mean. So for women also, the information technology give very good opportunities to develop their skills, even if they cannot move forward and go for other countries or study in foreign university or other. By the means of this technology, we can share the knowledge all over the world. I will go fast. Some ICT advantages for women, for example, more freedom regarding their work timing, if we speak about e-working, more mobility thanks to the e-work solution, more self-confidence and fulfilling their potential thanks to intellectual effort and not physical one. You know, the engineers field, we think about civil engineer or industrial engineer. So we need some physical force, if you want, in addition of the intellectual one. But with ICT, it is easier. And that's why women are more involved in this branch. Continuous training and improvement with e-learning and in the field of entrepreneurship, more opportunities and of partnership of building their own business and so on. So we know that the ICT bring new rules for the 21st century economy. So mainly I will speak about the fact that it makes easier for women to start up business in many fields and to find the right partner in other countries or in other parts of the world to establish this business. Still more opportunities. I think that we are at the beginning or advanced enough in this new era. So all women have to profit on that and to establish more opportunity for them and for the other person. They can have influence on them. I will go through these, but the key of success for involving women much, how to ensure that women will be more involved in science and technology in our countries. I think that we should continue to develop the female human resource, mainly education, at the 3 required level. And this work began inside the family itself. So the mothers, all the family members must say, for any girl who wants to go and to make these technical studies, there is no barriers. You can make exactly the same career as a man, so you can go ahead. But what we are hearing in our countries is maybe the opposite. No, you should better go and be a doctor or be a teacher, lawyer. It will be easy and maybe you will win more money also. So, and what is requested now for women to build this information technology, and mainly from these women engineers. I think that at all level of education, they have to improve the methods of education, to give more flexibility and to fight against this cultural and social barrier and to improve, accelerating the rate of comprehensive and sustainable development. This means essentially realizing the education for all principle and translation this right into good and equal educational opportunities for all, for both men and girls and boys. But I think that must go beyond that. So it must reach also adult illiteracy, to eradicate it and to, you know that we speak now about peace by women involvement and so on. They are more involved in general in social activities, so they can go through NGOs and make more opportunities for those women mainly that are not aware of that, about the capacity given by these ICTs. So they can, especially for engineers, providing and searching to support for the scientific research and the collaboration between university and industry, for example. They can bridge that gap and making ensure that the research will be transformed in real developing means in our countries, so to serve the development in general. This will necessitate increasing resources and funds, and to search for that, for financing this research for concrete development actions. To participate as specialized women in science and technology and applied collective basic research to ensure growth for the economy in general, and creating new job opportunities for women, and mainly for those who cannot exceed to larger opportunities, like women artisan, for example, and leading them to by making a portal for exporting their goods and so on. So creating professional information networks and sharing the knowledges with all and best practices with all women of the world, and I think that will enhance enough each own experience, of course. My personal opinion is to achieve that women have to have the right attitudes and to be self-confident. So we have our role to play inside our societies. And as women engineers or scientists, we have to improve things, and improve things in the right way, because we are more involved in education for our children also, and we have to be in the sharing of knowledges and information, to be there at the right moment and to catch the opportunity to make other people making success also with that. So as a conclusion, I said for all women of the world, their effective contribution will be at all the development levels, and they must not do more than they are doing now, because they are doing well, but they must show what they are doing, and to be here and not to be absent, because the absent peoples cannot have the right attitude and the right contribution at the right moment. So they have to be present and to make their voices and their ideas shared and adopted in such resolution, like in this summit. And I hope you a very good stay in Tunisia to build the future together. Thank you.
Thank you, Sana. You have put forward a very, very important issue. I'm sure that the attendees will raise many questions around these presentations. I think one way to empower women is to encourage them and to help them embrace technical careers. And as an engineer, as a WFEO, that's what we are trying to do during the next 2 years. We launched and we are undertaking a program which is called Empower Women, and to encourage them to be more present in the technical and scientific field. And this program, which was adopted recently in Puerto Rico at the last WFEO General Assembly, is made up of 3 main components. The first is a technical congress that will be held in Tunis next year here to talk about the gender issue. And the second component is a global study to provide statistics and to provide figures about to show how women are underrepresented in the engineering and scientific fields. And the third component is a training, I think, and we will be selecting a few, around 15 women to train them leadership, to train them ICT, networking, and to enable them to bring back the values that they will be taught here in Tunis. So the floor is open. We are on time, and we have around 20 minutes of discussion. Please ask your question. Please take the microphone and introduce yourself. The discussion is for all the speakers. Please come, let the speakers to come here, please.
It's not a question, it's a comment, and I'd like to listen to her opinion about what I'll be saying. The question of men, women, I think that it's an endless discussion. So I'm trying to take it from the other end. What do you think if we integrate in our educational curriculum an obligation to educate boys of new obligations in taking care of their houses? So since the classes, we need to educate boys so that we can go over all those cultural barriers. And at the same time, maybe we need to disseminate this idea among populations, so that we need to implement a program of communication to all men, so that they will feel an obligation to take care of house obligation and allow people and allow their wives at the same level to do their jobs. What do you think about this?
Thank you very much.
She can't agree anymore. I can respond.
I cannot. I cannot. So we cannot hope better, you know, for us and for the next generation.
Can I add?
I will just thank you.
Can I just add something?
Yes,
so
please.
if everybody agrees, the problem is finding the financing of these actions at the international level, I think.
So I will complete my answer by thanking you again for your reflection, but I think that we don't have only the children to educate for that positive way of thinking, and it will take enough time, you know, for more than 3 or 4 generations to reach maybe a good result. But I think that we have to focus really on that problem. That even I can speak about Tunisian case, for example, when we have where we have good rate of involvement of Tunisian women as engineers, but after being graduated, they change their works and they lose their technicity, if you want. So we have to analyze that and to improve things. Thank you.
I want to just tell a story. Last year in November, the WFEO, we held the World Engineers Convention in Shanghai. And during the week of the World Engineers Convention, there were a very good 2 days of women in engineering forum, gathering many women engineers from all over the world, and to get to interact with the Chinese women engineers. And after that, I sensed the great enthusiasm of all of them to want to continue to network together. So I went back to China and asked China whether they would become the secretariat for starting what we call Women Engineer International. initially under WFEO, but as they develop, it become a independent women engineer international organization. But the Chinese women engineer leaders, like Professor Hu Qiheng, who is here, and not in this room, but in WSIS here, they said, we don't understand the problem. In China, there's no gender problem in engineering. I cook one day, my husband cook the next day. I look after the children one day, the next day my husband look after the children. So she said that this is something very strange that I first heard in Shanghai, that in the rest of the world, there's so many problems with women engineers. Then I told them, I said, look, you are the ideal, country to have the secretariat, because that is what other country would like to aspire to. But they said that we don't understand the problem. How can we be the secretariat for the solution? So now I think Kamal has persuaded USA to lead the drive for this. But the other story I want to tell is this. In Australia, the number of boys going into engineering courses in university has been declining very badly. And actually Australia depends on Southeast Asia, overseas students to Australia in order to keep the engineering department open. They did a survey in 1999 about the future of engineering education in Australia. And they interview many high school students whether they would want to make engineering their career. And it was surprising that quite a number of male high school students said that they would not go into engineering because they see that there are very few women in engineering in the university level and in professional practice. Now, this is nothing to do with sex. What they say is that a profession like engineering that does not attract women, it is a non-caring profession. They do not want to join a non-caring profession. I think we male engineers have to take this lesson very seriously.
Thank you. Moji, you want to take the floor, please?
I'm Monji Hamdi. I'm an engineer by training, and I'm currently head of science and technology at UNCTAD and secretary to the United Nations Commission on Science and Technology for Development.
And he's Tunisian also.
And I'm Tunisian. I have a few comments to make. First, I would like to recognize the valuable efforts made by Datu Li Shang and his colleagues in the MDG Task Force on Science and Technology and Innovation. They helped the UN Commission on Science and Technology for Development in putting science and technology at the top of the agenda of the international mindset. And as a matter of fact, for the first time, world leaders recognized the importance of science and technology in achieving the Millennium Development Goals at the World Summit that was held in September in New York. And there is a big section in the outcome document of the summit that is devoted to the role of science, technology, and innovation. And but there is plenty of work to do to make those commitments into action. The second, I have another comment regarding some of the graphs that Sana has mentioned. I think with respect to the gender in the Gulf regions, you mentioned that women are much more at the university level than men. I believe the reason for that because parents usually encourage their male students to go study abroad, while women stay in the Gulf to study, and that's why the data is very significant. I take this opportunity to also tell you that the United Nations Commission on Science and Technology for Development has a gender advisory board. It has 3 regional nodes, one in Uganda, one in Uruguay, and one in Malaysia. And they have a website, it's www.gab.com, and you can find all the information if you need to cooperate with them in the area of science and technology and innovation. And thank you.
Thank you very much.
Can I just thank Mongi Maggie for his very kind words. But I think it is quite true that our task force has pushed the agenda of science and technology on the map of policymakers. But I think it is a very lucky coincidence that Millennium Development Goals are so much on the agenda of the world today. And it is not difficult to convince the policymakers that to achieve the Millennium Development Goal, you need major input in science, technology, and engineering. I just want to inform you that, of course, one of the great initiatives now for Africa is the Tony Blair Commission for Africa. And actually, the man behind this drive for the African Commission in UK, it is Chancellor of the Exchequer, Gordon Brown. He was the one who advocated that putting more investment in money and in ODA at the front end, rather than later on, and make a great effort, a great investment to help Africa, to achieve the MDG as early as possible. So on the 30th of this month, he is convening a small task force in his office, number 11 Downing Street. And this task group, it is how to put what he called is that how to make Africa grow by more science, technology, and innovation. So Lester Juma and myself, we are attending this and trying to basically use our report as a basis for the UK, Blair Commission for Africa, to try to make it much more focused on science, technology, and innovation. So as Mongi said, there's still a lot of work to do to follow up. Thank you.
Thank you. More questions, Majid, please.
I want to notice that engineers in many developed countries, women engineers in many developed countries have a salary less than a man, even if their number is equivalent. Then this is another kind of discrimination. In our countries, the discrimination is a discrimination of a number. In their countries, the discrimination is discrimination of salary. Then the discrimination is here all over the world. And I think it's a problem of absenteeism of the woman at the work because of cultural structure. But what I notice in my own work, I have to make kind of wisdom for it. What I notice is that even if women have an absenteeism because of her children, because of the house, the men have another kind of absenteeism because of the longer coffee breaks and more coffee breaks than a woman. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. I wanted to assure you that it's a global tendency.
Yeah.
Women are underrepresented not only in developing countries, but also in developed countries. And maybe we can mention the example of Germany. And women are underrepresented in the field of science and technology. So it's a global fight. It's not only a characteristic of developing countries. Sirshid, please.
I have to just to add to Dr. Datouli, you mentioned 600,000 engineers in US, in China, 300,000 in India, 60,000 in US, and 2,500 in Tunisia. It is not sufficient, you said, but we see that some engineers cannot find a job sometimes in all of the world. And just recently, Hewlett-Packard would like to to close for 30,000 people, and some engineers are there. And here in Tunisia and in Morocco, we see some informatic engineer working in call center. It's not a job engineer. There is there is something to do in this area. We need engineers, but we have sometimes engineers, or they have to look for a job more. And if we add women, there will be another problem for everything. This is one question. Just a small comment for Mrs. Sana. Your conclusions are very nice, and you have, I think, there is a lot of things to do, but it is not sufficient as the goodwill. I can tell you, I heard 1 week ago that in Norway, where the women are very active, and the government, the prime minister is a woman, many ministers, about 40 or 50% of the minister, but the prime minister is not very satisfied with the situation. She said that it is not sufficient goodwill for the parliament to push women in the high level, even in the board of community, of the board of company. So she is now producing a law to push the people, to oblige the people to have 50% of women in the board of the company.
Thank you.
Can I just make a comment that in our part of the world, in Asia Pacific, the training of the engineer is not just for engineering jobs. Like in Singapore, it is a policy of government that the first degree of all top civil servants must be engineering for the analytical process that the engineering education provides. Then they take up a master degree or an MBA in economics, finance. So in Singapore, all the top jobs, you know, in the Ministry of Finance and in trade and all this, they are all taken by engineers. But they never actually practice engineering. So when the government sent them to engineering school for the analytical training. So this is going to be the same in India, in China, in Malaysia, because in the knowledge economy now, what is needed is not to take the trenches, you know, and the physical engineering effort, but how to analyze problem intellectually.
Thank you. Thank you. Concerning this, I can say that the positive discrimination, as we call that, by imposing a certain ratio to involve women in many as decision makers or in political life or in the high board in companies, but it is a step between many steps. I think that the fundamental things to do is education, right education for all, and educating, as Munir said, boys to be good citizens and to share the responsibilities, the family responsibilities with their wives and so on, but also and deeply a hard work of coaching on women themselves to be more self-confident and to have better skills to improve their careers, because they are not right till now, as Majid said, because they don't ask for better conditions effectively. So they have to be coached for that. Thank you.
Thank you. I noticed that our discussion is turning around the gender issue discussion. Please, we have two other speakers, one about MDG and the second is about wireless technologies. They are the victim of women. Wireless technology. Yes.
Thank you. I present myself, not from civil society, but I am the IT manager of Tunisia Telecom. Then I not agree with the speaker when he said that the future for Africa is the wireless technology. Nothing replaces the wired technology, and you can see that even if there is a wireless, it is very easy to deploy a wireless network when you have a wired network than when you don't have a wired network. If you use satellite, satellite doesn't belong to you, then it will cost at the end, when you add the exploitation costs, it will cost much more than if you build your own fiber optic backbone. I think the real effort that must be done is building the national backbone of the country, and then we can say that we can choose between the wired and the not wired. Thank you. It was a notice, but I want to, if the speaker can explain more his idea why he said that it's an opportunity for him.
Actually, it was me that I said this. It's not him.
Sorry.
So, and you know, this is the result of a study carried out by the ITU on the development of wireless technology in Africa. And I gave you the example of the growth of penetration rate, mobile penetration rate, which is around 6% in Africa. And I said this because now you can have broadband through wireless technologies, and it's easier to develop and to disseminate wireless technology than wireline technology, which costs a lot. I said this because the cost of the wireline technology is a lot compared with the cost of wireless technology. That's why wireless technologies is growing faster in Africa, especially in Africa then. But I agree with you that to have broadband, we need also to develop infrastructure and wireline technologies. It's.
May I just add that Malaysia own our own satellites. That is the way to go. China also own their own satellite, and many countries like India now also own their satellite. I know, but to say that you have to rent bandwidth and all that, that is
in
a
fact,
start.
we have more than one satellite because we are we own a part of many satellites, Arabsat, Intelsat, etc., etc. Then if you add all of them, you will find one satellite and something. Then Tunisia own more than one satellite.
Yes, please.
Excuse me, I just like to comment what Majid is saying now. Yes, if we look at the problem from the spending point of view, yes, maybe it costs more to invest in the wireless technology. But I think that there is another logic, is the logic of return on investment. What are we going to do and to produce, and how are the African countries will produce a content, and then how the wireless technology facilitates the exportation of the content so that we can create the wealth from this. This is another point of view. Maybe in this point of view of the return on investment, maybe I agree on the wireless technology as a whole. So it depends on which indicator we are looking. Thank you.
Any question? More question? So I think now we are going to break for 20 minutes, and we have to be back within 20 minutes. We have one moment please, we have 3 more speakers, and very, very interesting speakers. That's why I ask you to come back, please, otherwise they will be upset. So we will listen to Russell Jones, who is, as I said, the chairman of the Standing Committee on Capacity Building. He will, I assume, talk also about gender issues and building capacity in various fields. Then we will listen to Wesley Schramm, who was involved 2 years ago with WFEO in its World Engineering Congress on Digital Divide, and he has just organized a very important event, and he's going to report back on the outcome of the event that he organized 2 days ago. And then we will listen to Professor New Sium, who is going to talk about the challenges in metallurgical industrial automation. The second session will be chaired by Professor Li Qiang. So I'm going to hand over the presidency for him, as he did 1 month ago in Puerto Rico. Thank you very much. You have the coffee break, please. he took over recently in Puerto Rico, and he's supposed to take over and to continue the work that has been started by the committee a few years ago towards the World Summit on the Information Society. And I want to announce that in next March, we are he's going to organize a workshop in Seoul to talk about engineering a digital divide, and we will study the contribution of WFEO to the implementation of the decisions that will be made in the second phase. So he's a very important person in the future of WFEO with regard to the World Summit on the Information Society.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to chair the next session. Originally, we have 4 speakers. Now I understand that there are only 3. So this will allow us more time for interaction between the audience and the panelists. So without further ado, I would hand the mic over to Dr. Russell Jones, and I would invite him to just introduce himself to you and then to continue with his presentation. Russ?
Good afternoon. Thank you for coming back after the coffee break. My name is Russell Jones. I am chairman of the WFEO Committee on Capacity Building, and in the process of the next few minutes, I'll try to tell you a little bit about that committee, its activities, and the rationale that WFEO had in setting it up. Some of my colleagues have heard me talk about this old Chinese proverb several times. The Chinese proverb says, if you give a person a fish, you have fed that person for today. If you teach a person how to fish, you have fed that person for a lifetime. But our capacity building committee goes one step further and says that if you can teach that person to can the fish, process it, sell it on the international market, you have actually done something that will lead to sustainable economic development. And our capacity building effort really is aimed at sustainable economic development as a way of meeting many of the goals that the Millennium Development Project talks about, of poverty eradication and a better life for individuals in developing countries. I have a very long definition of capacity building, but if you will look at some of the major elements, it talks about not only building capacity building as individuals, but the need to strengthen the economies, the governments, and the institutions in developing countries in order to have a sustainable forward motion in economic development. It aims at stable, sustainable structures, but all of this is built on the individual. And as you'll see in a moment when I cite some World Bank studies for you, it is in fact trying to motivate individuals to develop their own capacity and then build on that individual strength that will make capacity building work. I added a sentence here at the end after a recent meeting where somebody said, people like you from the United States don't understand what developing countries need. And I said, I know that, but I better add it to my definition. And the definition now says that capacity building must be responsive to the needs of those being served. So clearly we're talking about the building of capacity so that individuals in developing countries can in fact shape the future for those developing countries and not have it superposed by somebody's ideas from the outside. One of my favorite books over the past few years is this book by William Easterly. Easterly was working at the World Bank at the time, and he did a study of all the foreign aid that has occurred over the past several decades using World Bank data, International Monetary Fund data, data from the various regional development banks. And he tried to find out what forward progress had been made in terms of economic development, that is, sustainable economic development in developing countries. And his bottom line conclusion was that while some very good things happened, for example, water supply might have been put in place, primary education put in place. Good things happen, but absolutely no progress has been made over the last several decades in terms of sustainable economic development. So we have started to give people fish. Maybe we have taught them a little bit how to fish, but we certainly have not gotten that third stage of getting them involved in the economic development and the world economic marketplace. So Easterly's conclusion is that all of these effects have led to good things, but not the desired economic growth, and that these massive and expensive efforts have failed to understand that the stimulation of the individual is in fact what makes economic development happen. And somehow the aid money has not gotten down to that level of stimulating individuals, having their capacity built so that they can in fact as individuals and then as a collection of individuals lead to sustainable economic development in their countries. Easterly goes on to say, now that I've concluded that we haven't done anything right so far, what could be done right? And he says, well, there are two things that will lead to sustainable economic development in the future. And since we are all in the same business here of understanding how high technology and in particular information and communications technology can have positive impact, I'm sure you will all agree with his conclusion. His conclusion is that the way to get the desired economic growth is to use the advanced technologies, use the communications, use the computers in order to allow people in developing countries to join the world economy. And fundamental and underlying that is the need to educate those individuals. And in fact, it turns out that the education has to come first. If you don't have a pool of well-educated technical people in a developing country, it's very difficult for the use of the technology to be very effective. I go on to extend Easterly a little bit and say that what is needed is a solid base of technically prepared people in developing countries. If you have a solid base, well-educated engineers and applied scientists, computer scientists, and so on, and well-certified, that is, so that people from the outside know that they are well-qualified, three good things happen. The first good thing that happens is direct foreign investment. The world economy will respond by saying, hey, I can now open an operation in that country because there's somebody there for me to hire. In general, Western European and North American centered companies will not move into a developing country unless there is a technical pool to hire. They simply cannot send expatriates in and have a successful operation. So the first good thing that happens is that direct foreign investment will say, hey, there's a pool there, I'll move in, I'll start an operation, be it manufacturing, be it software development, whatever. The second good thing that happens is that aid money, the funds that do flow into a country from abroad, can be used more effectively. Instead of having a Halliburton or a Brown and Root or a major outside company come in and do a consulting job, hopefully leave an instruction manual and then run away, with a pool of technical people there, they could get heavily involved in using the aid money effectively and developing expertise that will stay in that country, hopefully allowing them to do the next job of that type within the country with indigenous expertise. And the third thing that can happen is that it provides a basis for business development and entrepreneurial activity. The examples from my own country in the US, Hewlett and Packard, for example, started their business in a garage in California. Gates and Boomer started Microsoft in a garage. So this kind of small to medium business enterprise can have a great impact in terms of accumulating an economic growth in developing countries. I'd like to talk to you about two complementary approaches that my WFEO committee has been approaching. One is working heavily with UNESCO, and I'll describe to you a little bit the effort of building a cross-sectoral approach in capacity building within UNESCO. And I want to talk to you about the WFEO Committee on Capacity Building, which hopefully will be action-oriented. UNESCO is a convening body, it is a policy writing body, it is a statistics gathering body. It stays well above the grassroots in terms of getting things done. And the WFEO committee aspires to be collaborative and do some things where the rubber meets the road and perhaps be out ahead of what the policy making group can do. Let me describe quickly for you those two efforts. With the help of my good friend here, Data Lee, we developed a proposal that the U.S. Ambassador, Louise Oliver, would take to the UNESCO Executive Board this last spring. And in May, we had such a proposal ready. Ambassador Oliver was ready to take it. And with a very short notice of about 3 weeks, Data Lee was asked to develop some support from our 90 or so countries around the world. By the time he finished writing letters, making phone calls, and sending emails, we had 23 co-sponsors from our effort at making that proposal go forth. And it was such an overwhelming support from mostly developing countries that it went right through the UNESCO Executive Board very quickly. What it does is request the Director General, or in fact instruct him, to build a cross-sectoral activity within UNESCO that helps developing countries address the elements of the Millennium Development Goals, particularly things like safe drinking water and poverty reduction. And it asks that it be a cross-sectoral approach that involves not only engineering and science, but also education and also the ICT effort at UNESCO. So hopefully it will bridge across the traditional stovepipes at UNESCO and bring to bear capacity from a variety of fields. It includes, as one of its operations, also enhancing the engineering field. When I first started working with UNESCO 20 years ago, there were 15 engineers on its staff. There is now 1. And that has to be reversed and a much better capability built. So UNESCO has now agreed to move forward in this area of technical capacity building, and we are hopeful that they will be staffing up and putting resources, not only the direct budgetary resources, but other resources that can be attracted into building technical capacity in developing countries. The WFEO Standing Committee on Capacity Building was in fact established right here at a meeting that I think you have seen some of the output from as passed out here. Kamel Ayati hosted a meeting running up to this WSIS. At the same time hosted a meeting of the General Assembly of WFEO 2 years ago here in Tunis. The United States brought forth a proposal saying we think the time is right to do something major in capacity building. The U.S. member of WFEO, the American Association for Engineering Societies, said it would host it. If the committee were approved, they would provide a chairman. I got tapped to be that chair, and it was approved by the WFEO General Assembly. Data Lee and Kamel Ayati were very supportive at the time of getting this started, and it will complement, we think, the UNESCO in-house effort, and in many cases we think be out ahead of the UNESCO effort in making actual forward motion for technical capacity building. I want to tell you a little bit about what our current committee activities are, and in particular the first 2 on this list. For the past 2 years we've had a very heavy involvement in Latin America. We consider Latin America to be low-hanging fruit. We thought we could make a lot of progress in a short period of time because many of the countries there are partway up the development chain. And I also want to tell you a little bit about our Africa initiatives, which obviously require getting further back in the pipeline. Engineering for the Americas is an effort where my committee is collaborating with the Organization of American States to highlight the need for engineering expertise, technical capacity building throughout the Latin American and Caribbean area. We were successful in taking a resolution to the Ministers of Science and Technology. My date is wrong here, it's actually November 2004. We got the Ministers of Science and Technology meeting in Lima to say that for the next 2 decades, engineering was the most important thing they would invest in. And that means investing in laboratories, it means investing in full-time faculty rather than part-time faculty. It means investing in innovation centers, halfway houses that will develop products, and the opportunity for engineers to build the kind of expertise that I mentioned earlier, attract multinational companies, use aid money effectively, and start entrepreneurial activities. The presidents of the 30 or so countries in the Americas met earlier this month. Those of you who watch television may recall Mr. Chavez and Mr. Bush shouting at one another, but behind the scenes, the resolution that the OAS had helped us take forward to the Ministers of Science and Technology was also approved by the presidents. So we now have the authorization of the presidents from throughout the hemisphere to make engineering our top priority for development over the next couple of decades. About 10 days from now, my committee and OAS will be hosting a major meeting of 300 people in Lima. We have raised about $500,000 to bring all the right people there. Academics, both rectors of universities and deans of engineering, government officials, below the minister level. The ministers can get themselves there, but we're anxious in getting the people who will actually implement some of these things there. Industry officials and people from the NGOs, people like licensure boards and accreditation agencies. We think that this major meeting will do three things. One, define what an engineer for the Americas should be. Secondly, talk about engineering education and the need to upgrade it within the southern part of the American hemisphere. And thirdly, work with each of the governments in each of the countries to develop a plan forward, and not only plan, but the way to find resources, money, to implement that plan. The Inter-American Development Bank happens to have turned the same corner that the OAS has in terms of saying engineering is important, and that Regional Development Bank is very anxious. And as a first example, just awarded last month $25 million to Peru to upgrade its engineering and engineering education. So we think we can have a major positive impact getting each of the countries in the hemisphere to move forward.